What up? What is up? It is Thursday night, and guess what, y'all? We are live. Got some feedback. Sorry about that. But y'all let me know if you can see me on live. Let me know if you can see me live. Let me know if you can see me live. I'm streaming live to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Again, that is YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And it's your boy Mondale with Uncovered. So you're watching Uncovered with Mondale, and I want to talk about a few things real quick. So please let me know by sending me a message if you can see me live, because I'm going to start talking pretty soon. I got a few things I want to talk about real quick. I'm not going to be up here long, but I definitely want people to know that uh, there's a different way of thinking about what's going on as it pertains to these United States of America at this moment politically. Okay, good. I now know you all can see me, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna list out the topics I want to talk about tonight. Like I said, I'm not gonna be up here long, but this is just some stuff on my head that I need to get off my head. It's also on my heart, and I can't get it off my heart. So please know that I am gonna talk about this. And I thought I was done talking about one of these topics, but the person want to continue to run his mouth. Therefore, I shall talk about him again. That person is Killer Mike. I'm going to talk about Killer Mike at the end. But before that, I want to talk about grocery stores, one grocery store in particular. That's a local issue to infill. I want to talk about electric bills. That's a local issue to infill. Then I want to talk about uh, cops in general, but one cop in specific. Uh, and then I also want to talk about, like I said, King, Dr. Killer, I'm not Dr. Killer Mike, Dr. Martin Luther King and Killer Mike in contrast. So let's just jump right into it. Monday, for y'all that don't know, I am beyond a political consultant. I am also the founding principal of Black Male Voter Project. We are the nation's only organization who has a holistic approach that's grounded in psychology, trying to engage Black men and motivate them to participate in electoral politics. So there's a lot of hats that I wear, and all of these topics are related to at least one of those, and some of them related to all of them. So, in my capacity as mayor, we have a town meeting every third Monday in the town of Enfield, North Carolina. In that town meeting that happened this past Monday, uh, one of the commissioners tried to be slick. His name is Commissioner Kent Holmes. Apparently, he had been having conversations with one of the town employees about me giving permission to one of the businesses in town to have an extension on their light bill. He was trying not to say the business name and talking in code, saying that the town has a policy not to give extensions to businesses or people at all. So I asked him several times to say the company name. When he finally got around to saying the company name, the permission that I gave to keep the lights on in this bill, the 3-week extension for this business, was a grocery store. Now, why is this important, and why did the mayor choose to say, yes, this grocery store can have 3-week extension on their light bill? Well, the reason I did that is because Enfield is a small town and it has one grocery store. That's part of it. The second part of it is Enfield is also the seventh poorest city in the United States of America. The seventh poorest city, not in North Carolina. It is the poorest city in North Carolina. It is the seventh poorest city in the United States of America. To have the lights cut off in this town where the average annual income is $20,500 is for me to say that I make that entire town, or I'm cool with the entire town being a food desert. Already, the quality of food available to people in Enfield is extremely limited, even in this grocery store that's trying to supply groceries to poor people. Mind you, that this town is more than 90% Black. The commissioner, this white commissioner, Commissioner Holmes, thought it was cool to try and, I guess, embarrass me because I gave a 3-week extension to this grocery store. And he was like, oh, well, the town's going to be left on the hook if they don't pay. And my thinking was, Do we cut the lights off in this grocery store and let the people of Enfield not have any grocery store, not have access to food at all? Because I just told you the annual income is 20,500, which you should be able to logically understand that majority of these people, or a large portion of the population of my town, don't have cars. So the closest grocery store, if you close this grocery store, would be in Roanoke Rapids, which is about 20 miles, or Rocky Mount, which is about 20 miles in the other direction. How then do you expect these people to do without food or access to food if we would have cut the lights off, because everything in that store would have spoiled? I stand by my position to say that we should have extended that light bill, and we did extend it. The commissioners go ahead and vote on any time that anybody wants an extension. It has to be brought to the board. That means we would have to call a meeting, wait for the meeting to happen, and then the commissioners would have to say yes or no. This is beyond draconian. This is beyond immoral. This is the lack of understanding on the commissioner part to say that they believe, or to say that you believe, that we shouldn't have lights on at the grocery store. Fast forward to today, that will not make news. What will not make news, other than right here on Uncovered with Mondale, is the fact that that grocery store owner has paid that bill for those 3 weeks that we gave him an extension. And that also means that the people of Enfield did not have to go without a grocery store. That means that all that inventory in there did not spoil because there were lights running for 3 weeks. The town of Enfield lost nothing over those 3 weeks, which leads me right to the next topic, which is electric bills. So for some people don't understand what it means to be an electric city. Enfield is an electric city. It means the city itself provides the utilities to its residents. Our electric grid is old and need updates, and people are paying exorbitant amounts. I need to remind you all that I just told you that the people of Enfield live in and make up the poorest town in the state of North Carolina, the 7th poorest town in the United States of America. The 7th poorest town in all the states in this country. So, being that our town provides electricity to these residents, it wasn't until the meeting Monday that the town board thought it was okay that the people in Enfield did not have a grace period. There was no grace period for people. That means if you were late on your electric bill, it was just cut off. You didn't get a grace period at all. Not a single grace period at all. I said it was disgusting. Some of the commissioners try to say we need to talk about this more. We need to have a plan. I said it is immoral. It's not Christian. And it damn sure doesn't seem like a healthy democracy. So I said we should vote right now on whether we believe the people of Enfield, who are some of the poorest residents in this country, should have a grace period. It went to a vote, and nobody, well, one person, the same person, the white commissioner who thought it was okay to bring up this point in the meeting about the grocery store, voted against it. But the rest of the commissioners voted to give people an extension. So now the residents of Enfield, like most other places in the world, have a grace period. So your electric bill will not be cut off if you're late. This is how we have to think about it. Even if you become the unpopular person in the position that you find yourself in, it is definitely not, it's just not okay. It is our moral obligation to stand up to these draconian ideas about how we treat people so people can live with dignity. I don't care if I don't have any friends left in Enfield at the end of my term, but I will say the people of Enfield damn sure will benefit for these 4 years that I'm mayor. And I'll do everything in my power to do that, even if it includes bringing up topics that people don't want to talk about. So now we have a grace period in our town. Our grocery store still has groceries that are not spoiled, and people can still use that grocery store, and they paid their bill. That is a topic that they will not talk about. Enfield did not get stuck with the bill of that grocery store because they paid it. They paid it. We are obligated, even if we're talking to our comrades, even if we're talking to our counterparts, we are obligated to make sure that we're doing right for the majority and not the minority who may exploit the exception that we create for a majority of people living on the margins, people without enough means to make ends meet. So damn right I did it. And I'm excited about the fact that we have a grace period now so people will not be living without dignity. Think about this. Without the ability to have a grace period, you strip people from other resources. There are community resources, community agencies that will help people pay their late bills. Well, if Infield was not even providing people with late bills, they couldn't even qualify for social services or the churches that are willing to pay or help you pay your late bill, because Infield never issued a late bill. They just cut the services off. So now these people can have late bills, and they can go to these services, social services and other services around the state to pay those bills, to help them pay those bills. This is what I'm talking about when we need to stop thinking about ourselves and think about the least amongst us. That's what I'm talking about. I'm super excited about those two local issues. The last local issue I'm going to talk about is, some of you all might remember that a few months back, I tore down a Confederate monument after our board voted 4-1 to tear that monument down. It was a Confederate monument. I tore it down. After that, the police chief, who was not working that day, who was not in the state that day, actually called the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, told them they need to investigate me because I committed a crime by tearing down a Confederate monument. There was no crime committed because, first of all, the only state statute that exists about this has no teeth as it pertains to what's the problem if you tear down a monument. And it's also written for monuments that are owned by the state. This monument wasn't owned by the state. It was owned by the town of Enfield, on Enfield property in a park, a Confederate monument in a town that's 90% black, in a park that black kids played in, had to go. So the board voted for it to go. I saved the town money by turning it down myself. So what happened was the police chief resigned after he called the SBI and said I was trying to create a divisiveness in our community. And he also said, this is what the police chief said: I created a hostile and oppressive work environment for him. Keep in mind that I only worked with this guy about 2 or 3 days and only had one conversation with him while we were on duty. One conversation. He resigned. This is a black man resigned, saying it was a hostile and also a oppressive environment. Well, guess what we found out at the meeting on Monday? That same police chief had been talking to a commissioner saying that he would be willing to come back to work as police chief. But he wanted to have a meeting with me and the board. I said, I'm the same mayor that tore down that monument. So why does he want to come back to a hostile or oppressive work environment? He tried to pull a stunt. A few months earlier in the year, the entire police chief in Kinley, North Carolina resigned because that town hired a black woman to be town manager. And she was cracking down on the police officers for dirty tactics. And what happened was they pressured the board, all the police, by leaving to get rid of her and bring them back on. His shit didn't work because I'm not hired by the board. I was elected by the people of Enfield. And that police chief left the people of Enfield with no police chief in a time where we were getting threatened by white supremacists. That was a cowardly move. There's no way the people of Enfield will be safe bringing this police chief back. There's no way in hell he should be police chief in Enfield, North Carolina. The people of Enfield, even if you were not at the town meeting, should know about this shenanigans. He brought all this negative attention to the town, talking about it was oppressive and also hostile because of his actions. He called the SBI when it was no crime broken. That's what he did. That is not a police chief. That is not a police officer that should have a job in Enfield or nowhere. Nowhere. And I mean that. So I just wanted to tell y'all about what the hell is going on in Enfield because I love that town. It's my hometown and people should know. People should know. Now let's switch to the only national issue I'm going to talk about tonight before I hop off. Killer Mike has been on Twitter saying all types of craziness about how he's not going to tell people who he's voting for. Now, people might say, well, hey, your vote is private. You get to say that. That's absolutely true. The vote is private. But when you put yourself out here as a so-called political leader and you're going around this country campaigning for politicians like he did for Bernie Sanders, when you're interviewing people on behalf of so-called on behalf of Black America, then you damn right you have an obligation to say where you stand politically on politicians or those looking to govern Black people, especially when you live in one of the blackest states in this country. Georgia is one of the blackest states in this country. So you saying that you ain't telling people who you're voting for when Kemp and Herschel Walker are running, then you're being a coward yourself. You're not a political leader. And it also should say, and you should also say that you're not a political leader. You never have. And the only reason you have a political platform is because a white man from Vermont, i.e. Bernie Sanders, gave you a platform. Vermont is the whitest nation. So if you're from Georgia, why your political career isn't about Georgia or didn't start in Georgia, it's because you are a rapper and you need to stay in rappers' lanes. People are going to be like, what the fuck you mean you trying to tell Black people that they can't speak about politics? That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say that you cannot pick and choose when it's time to put your feet to the fire, that you're going to play silent. You're going to play silent on important issues like the election in Georgia right now. That is bullshit. That is cap, and Black people shouldn't stand for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also remind the world about who Killer Mike really is. So I'm going to play a clip. I need y'all to bear with me of Killer Mike talking back in 2020 after George Floyd was killed. Then I'm going to play a clip of Dr. King talking. So y'all bear with me real quick. I'm going to play these two clips, these two audios, and then I'm going to dissect what we heard. So here we go. First, I'm going to start with the Killer Mike clip.
I didn't want to come, and I don't want to be here. I'm the son of an Atlanta City police officer. My cousin is an Atlanta City police officer, and my other cousin, East Point police officer. And I got a lot of love and respect for police officers, down to the original 8 police officers in Atlanta that even after becoming police had to dress in a YMCA because white officers didn't want to get dressed with niggas. And here we are 80 years later. I watched a white officer assassinate a Black man, and I know that tore your heart out. And I know it's crippling. And I have nothing positive to say in this moment because I don't want to be here. But I'm responsible to be here because it wasn't just Dr. King and people dressed nicely who marched and protested to progress this city and so many other cities. It was people like my grandmother, people like my aunts and uncles who were members of the SCLC and NAACP, and in particular, Reverend James Orange, Mrs. Alice Johnson, and Reverend Love, who we just lost last year. So I'm duty bound to be here to simply say that it is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy. It is your duty to fortify your own house so that you may be a house of refuge in times of organization. And now is the time to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize. It is time to beat up prosecutors you don't like at the voting booth. It is time to hold mayoral offices accountable, chiefs and deputy chiefs. Atlanta is not perfect, but we're a lot better than we ever were, and we're a lot better than cities are. I'm mad as hell. I woke up wanting to see the world burn down yesterday because I'm tired of seeing Black men die. He casually put his knee on a human being's neck for 9 minutes as he died like a zebra in the clutch of a lion's jaw. And we watch it like murder porn over and over again. So that's why children are burning to the ground. They don't know what else to do.
That's why children are burning to the ground. They don't know what else to do. I'm going to address Killer Mike's statements after we listen to Dr. King. This is Dr. King, September 27th, 1966.
60 Minutes. Rewind.
Now, what I'm saying is this. I would like for all of us to believe in nonviolence, but I'm here to say tonight that if every Negro in the United States turns against nonviolence, I'm going to stand up as a lone voice and say this is the wrong way.
I will never change in my basic idea that nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to the Negro in his struggle for freedom and justice. I think for the Negro to turn to violence would be both impractical and immoral.
There is an increasingly vocal minority who disagreed totally with your tactics, Dr. King.
There's no doubt about that. I will agree that there is a group in the Negro community advocating violence now. I happen to feel that this group represents a numerical minority. Surveys have revealed this. The vast majority of Negroes still feel that the best way to deal with the dilemma that we face in this country is through nonviolent resistance. And I don't think this vocal group will be able to make a real dent in the Negro community in terms of swaying 22 million Negroes to this particular point of view. And I contend that the cry of black power is at bottom a reaction to the reluctance of white power to make the kind of changes necessary to make justice a reality for the Negro. I think we've got to see that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the economic plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years.
How many summers like this one do you imagine that we can expect?
Well, I would say this, we don't have long. The mood of the Negro community now is one of urgency, one of saying that we aren't going to wait, that we've got to have our freedom. We've waited too long. So that I would say that every summer we are going to have this kind of vigorous protest. My hope is that it will be nonviolent. I would hope that we can avoid riots because riots are self-defeating and socially destructive. I would hope that we can avoid riots, but that we will be as militant and as determined next summer and through the winter as we have been this summer. And I think the answer about how long it will take will depend on the federal government, on the city halls of our various cities, and on white America to a large extent. This is where we are at this point, and I think white America will determine how long it will be and which way we go in the future.
Even Senator Jacob Javits asked the question recently. He said that he was a slum resident, but he and some of his fellow Jews were able to make it out of the ghetto on the Lower East Side. The same thing is true with lots of Irish, Italians. And he asked the question why the Negro finds it so difficult to make his way up out of the ghetto.
Well, number one, no other racial group has been a slave on American soil. It's nice to say other people were down and they got up. They were not slaves on American soil. The other thing is that the Negro has had high visibility. And because of the prejudices existing in this country, his color has been against him. It's been against him, and they've used this to keep him from moving up. In the final analysis, when you say to a man that you are in this position because of your race or because of your color, you say to that man that he can never get out of it. Other racial groups have been able maybe to change the accent or change the names, but the Negro can't.
Let me break down what we just heard, what we just listened to. We just listened to two audios, and context is important. Killer Mike was speaking in the context of what happened to George Floyd in 2020. And everything Killer Mike, some of the stuff Killer Mike said was absolutely correct as it pertains to it is the time to mobilize and fight at the ballot box. That is absolutely true. The problem with Killer Mike's statement, some of the problems with Killer Mike's statement is the fact that he thought it was smart enough to start out his comments naming all the police officers that he loved. And then he went on to say, I love police. This is equivalent. It has to be equivalent to people say not all police are bad. What the fuck do we care about all police when black people are getting killed by police? It's the institution that's corrupt. I can care less about individuals' beliefs. But if you can put on a uniform and leave your biases at home, it wouldn't matter. But what we're seeing is this country over police black bodies like nobody else. Killer Mike failed to recognize that. Also, Killer Mike gave ownership to the city of Atlanta, to black people. He said, don't burn down your own homes. Fortify your own homes. Black people, I would argue that black people didn't burn down any of their own homes. It is ridiculous to say that. It's also ridiculous to compare tearing down a building or property to the life being taken from black people. Those buildings can be rebuilt. There's nothing we can do that can resuscitate George Floyd. Nothing. A black man died screaming he couldn't breathe at the hands of a police officer. And we have to admit that. And it wasn't the only one. Not that year, not the years before that, the 400 years before that, and the years since then. So for Killer Mike to sit up there and tell people not to be upset, it's him disregarding what Dr. King said about riots being the language of those not heard. And then Dr. King went further to say that what had America not heard? And it was the economic plight and all of the institutional racism that exists in this country as it pertains to black people. Why is that important? 2 reasons. Dr. King made that statement in 1966. It is 2022. That means Dr. King understood that many years ago what the hell was going on and why black people were rioting. And Killer Mike in 2020 couldn't even see that. Another point is Dr. King made that point when he was 37 years old. Killer Mike made his statement when he was 55. That means his understanding this many years later and also 20 years more in age is still lacking the emotional intelligence and also the understanding that's necessary to see the plight of black people. He crying because he owned businesses where black people was rioting. Him and his friends, T.I. and others, were telling black people not to protest. To tell black people not to protest and go vote is absolutely stupid. Why not protest and vote? Why not protest and vote? And if white America and some of the black people are upset with black people rioting when they see people that look just like them, that could be them, people they know, love, and don't know, but look just like, being murdered by institutions in this country, i.e. police departments, it is the job of black people to say something. It is immoral to sit silent while black people are being murdered just because of the color of their skin. Killer Mike's statement leaves all of this out. Killer Mike's statement is absolutely disgusting for that very reason. Yes, he said some things that were right, but his messaging was flawed from the beginning. He wanted to remind people that he loved cops and name the cops that he's related to. I don't give a damn about cops. In this country, cops were born out of slave catchers. Every police department that was first formed came from slave catchers. In the 60s, Richard Nixon, I'm sorry, maybe it's earlier than Richard Nixon. Yeah, earlier than Richard Nixon, racist white men stopped saying nigger and started putting on uniforms and start killing people with guns instead of hanging them. So lynching ain't dead. It's just got a different motherfucking look right now. Killer Mike in his statement lacks that. Killer Mike tonight went on Twitter and tried to mock the Democratic Party. I'm not here to defend the Democratic Party. I can give 2 fucks about that. What I am going to say, though, is he took liberty with some facts that I need to check, because as Black Male Voter Project founder and principal, he lied. Killer Mike said the Democratic Party is attacking him, and he's already turned out. He's responsible for increasing blacks' participation. I asked Killer Mike on Twitter, tell us your strategies that you use to increase black participation, because you ain't did shit but run your mouth. And this is what happens when you give celebrities who are famous for something other than politics platforms to speak politically without vetting their tactics and strategies. They claim responsibility and credit for shit they don't do. Killer Mike has not and is not responsible for black increase. It is the many hours spent by black organizations, people that are trusted messengers in our communities that do this work day in and day out and don't parachute in political spaces when it's advantageous for their motherfucking brand. Killer Mike is not responsible. D.L. Hewley is not responsible. T.I. is not responsible for the increase in black participation as they sit back on millions of fucking dollars and exclude themselves from the everyday suffering of majority black people across this country. We got to stop bullshitting and saying that Kanye West, Lil Wayne, and the likes are responsible for the increase in black male and black people in general participation in electoral politics when I know people, i.e. Cliff Albright, i.e. Latasha Brown, i.e. Alicia Garza, i.e. so many other people spend insane umfa. So many motherfuckers, Anoa. All of these people spend their entire fucking life doing this work. Day in and day out. And to have idiots to get up here afraid to say who they even voting for to claim that they're responsible for black increase in participation is a slap in the face of all of us who do this work day in and day out. So to Killer Mike, you, sir, have been uncovered by Mondale Robinson. Y'all have a good night, but not before you think about it. Peace.